to get into some of these questions.
Sure.
And in one of them, you have a dilemma that the person's going through, that they sign their kids up for a Hifz program. They really like the teacher, but they're teaching certain values to their children at home about not using certain words, in particular like dumb, stupid, et cetera, but they're finding that their teacher is getting very upset, angry, and not controlling their temper, and using such words that they are telling their kids not to use. And when approaching the teacher, it's under this, and then maybe you can define what this means, tarbiyah, right? So they're trying to understand, like, because we wouldn't tolerate this in any secular school, but why is this happening, right? Are we sending mixed signals to our children? There's a lot of yelling and shouting at the kids. What should they do? Should they take them out? They're scared that the children might end up growing to resent Qur'an, to leave Islam, maybe because it is having a traumatizing experience. How can we address this with the teacher, and what advice do you have for us?
Okay, Bismillah. I pray Allah guides my words correctly here. Irrespective of this particular situation, this could be something that's like ubiquitous, could be all across the globe in many different spheres, even in the parenting dynamic with their children. And yes, I mean, Yaqeen Institute, right, for Islamic research, our inaugural research was the pathways to doubt. What causes people to doubt? What adds? And there is no doubt that a primary reason why people reconsider their affiliation with Islam and start doubting it is bad experiences that cause a resentment, whether it's conscious or subconscious, of the religion and the personalities of the religion and just the whole ethos. I don't want to be anywhere near that atmosphere. And so this is not a small factor. Like, I would so much rather someone not be in tip-top shape as their parents would want, get to medical school and memorize the whole Qur'an, and because that stress factor that the parents sometimes artificially create, it doesn't have to be that way, right? Kids have different types of intelligence. It doesn't mean they're unintelligent if they can't memorize Qur'an, or if they can't, find a passion in engineering or medicine or otherwise. There are different types of intelligence. There are different interests in people. At the end of the day, this stress causes parents and educators, tarbiyah just means like discipline or child rearing, development, pedagogy. It causes them to think that there's a quick fix, and that's what makes them angry. And the Prophet ﷺ says, do not get angry, do not get angry, do not get angry. And Al-Khattabi rahimahullah says something very interesting when explaining this hadith. He says this, like, fundamental advice should not be understood at face value, because anger is not a light switch. You can't just not get angry. So do not become angry, he says. So it means either, number one, because these are the things within our capacity, and Allah only asks us within our capacity. It means, number one, don't put yourself in a situation where you're going to fall into anger, right? So walk away from the conversation with your spouse, or stop having high expectations of the person in front of you. Impatience. The things that make you angry, avoid them, the precursors. He says, number two, or it means that when you get angry, don't act angry, meaning restrain your anger. So part of restraining your anger, the Prophet ﷺ himself said, إِذَا غَضِبَ أَحَدُكُمْ فَلْيَسْكُتْ. When one of you becomes angry, he's not allowed to speak, because that'll only make things worse. When you speak or act when you're angry, you will, if you have some sort of conscience, regret it at some point later. Oh man, I broke the laptop. Oh snap, I divorced my wife. I don't have any more. Divorce is despair. Oh man, I pushed this child away from the masjid. They put on a show for me, and they memorized the entire Qur'an, but they were just using that as a reason to get out of the program. They were accelerating their jumping ship from the masjid atmosphere. You will regret it. That's a very important part. What makes us so impatient? We think we have control. No, you don't have control. People have their own pace. That's a huge part of it. There's a very good book called Scream Free Parenting. I advise.
What is it called?
Scream Free Parenting.
Scream Free Parenting. You recommend that book?
Certainly.
Yeah.
And I haven't read it entirely. I have to make a disclaimer. But just the concept of you actually being at the end of your wits by screaming is what it really boils down to. Like, you feel like I'm losing control. No, you were never in control sometimes. They just have to take their natural course, right? The next thing is, this is a very forgotten sunnah of our Prophet ﷺ, to focus on the positives, this is what allows negativity to evaporate, right? Like, we're not even talking anymore about using bad language. That's unacceptable.
Unacceptable.
Right? We don't curse. We don't make dua against our children. We don't make dua against people. We don't use derogatory language. This is unbefitting of any believer, with adults, with kids. Just
Is there anything from the Quran and Sunnah that somebody can use this as a form of tarbiyah? Because most parents think, okay, maybe this is the imam, maybe he's got something. I don't know the whole deen. Maybe there's something there in the hadith, and there's a wisdom behind this, using such words, towards the kids. Is there anything there of benefit? And people want to know specific,
No.
like calling a kid stupid, retarded,
no, absolutely not.
fool.
We can say that people will become agitated, angry, emotional, and that means that you're like emotionally invested in the kid in front of you. That's fine, right? Like, I'm gonna react sometimes because I care.
So you're not. So the first
That's
part.
one thing, though.
So Quran and Sunnah, nothing. You cannot use Quran and Sunnah to say that. Okay, I'm following Quran and Sunnah. in this.
I mean, they gashed the Prophet ﷺ's face, and they said to him, make dua against them. He says, "Ma bu'ithtu la'anan." I was not sent to invoke God's curse perpetually, constantly on people. He did in very rare circumstances. The Quran even says that David and Jesus, peace be upon them, they made dua against Banu Israel. Prophet ﷺ, in very exceptional circumstances, but they have to remain exceptions, he made dua. This is dua to Allah, right? This is not lashing out against people.
These are against enemies that are trying to kill you.
And even then, he refused to be recurrent with this. He said,
Yeah.
I was not sent to be like this.
But we're talking about kids. You're trying to teach the book of Allah, the Quran. It reminds me of when I think about, what is it, Anas ibn al-Malik? He served the Prophet ﷺ for how many years? 10 years.
Right.
And what happened after that?
Forget cursing, forget yelling. He said, he never said to me about something I did, why did you do that? Or something I didn't do, why didn't you do that?
Wow.
He said, I even tested him one time. Like, I said, let me just see what he's going to do when I defy him. And so he said to me to do something, and I refused. So he came out after me, and I was just deliberately just playing with the boys in the streets, basically. He came and he put his hands on my shoulders gently, alayhi salatu wassalam, and he said, "Oh, Anas, why don't you go do such and such? Like, you and I know you're supposed to, but just look at the approach. Like, human beings are like seat belts. They just don't come with snatching. It just doesn't work." I'll give a personal story just to show that I'm not innocent. I was so frustrated with one of my children because they did not like to be told what to do. And this, inshallah, will be a good quality of theirs if we're able to channel it correctly, that they will not buckle to pressure if they ever need to say a word of truth, speak truth to power, inshallah, hopefully. But I spent 2 years trying to force my kid to say thank you. And just because I said, what do we say? Say thank you. They would refuse to. It's just like, I don't take orders. And it would get me so frustrated. I was at the end of my wits, as they say. And then my wife said to me, Muhammad, just ignore him. Just praise his sister. She'll never forget to say thank you. Akhi, 1 week, mashallah, so-and-so always says thank you, mashallah, you never forget to say thank you. This is all conversations. They're in the back seat, we're in the front seat usually. Within 1 week, he was saying thank yous without missing a beat. So the concept of positive reinforcement, catching people doing it right and amplifying that for their sake and the sake of those around them, is so much more effective and so much more merciful than focusing. Like, we're good at catching people doing wrong things. The Prophet ﷺ, he said to us that the believer is like a bee, right? And I just gave a khutbah recently, it's on YouTube somewhere, about, are you a bee or are you a fly? Because flies land on
dung,
yeah. Number 2, or things that are rotting, carcasses, and decomposing bodies of
dirty
animals,
things,
right? Dirty things, trash. And bees land on nectar, and they take the good from it, and they give the good back, and they land ever so gently. And this is what the Prophet ﷺ is saying. And so he used to always land on the good things that people are doing and praise them. And this has to be understood, like the concept of you shouldn't praise because someone's going to get deluded and conceited. The Prophet ﷺ praised many people. And so those ahadith about don't praise must be understood to mean don't excessively praise. Don't praise when you feel like someone's head's getting really big. Don't praise in a way that's going to cause them to become haughty and pompous and proud and arrogant and the likes. But positive reinforcement, it'll make you happier. Like, I was like, my goodness, I put myself through 2 years of stress about this issue, and I was almost about to give up. And then Allah blessed me with a wife who turned on the lights for me. And I was able, like, my goodness, it didn't have to be this hard.
Yeah.
And so feeling you're in control makes you too angry. No, it has to take its natural course. And not all kids are at the same pace. Not all kids are identical. Even between boys and girls. I don't want to get into gender debates, but boys and girls have general tendencies that they are two camps, right? So not the same exact form of education could necessarily be ideal for both genders. And appreciating that and addressing it adequately will make things so much more pleasant in the educational atmospheres. Anyway, I'm ranting. I'm so sorry.
No. So it takes a little more effort here, but you have better results. And it goes back here. I mean, we've all been there. I mean, I know personally, you know, you get, let's say you have, 6, 7, 8, 9 kids, you know, you're dealing with, and you kind of lose your cool and you raise your voice. And I take it from my own experience. After you go on a screaming rant, you know what I mean? It just takes a lot of energy out of you. I've caught myself. I said, wow.
So is it really harder to do it the other way? No, it's just harder to break the habit. Harder to change your lens from, instead of noticing the negative and only landing on that, the nasty stuff like the fly, you just start looking for the nectar and start landing on that stuff.
Your body is releasing toxins actually when you get all stressed out like that are actually cancer causing. You're
just toxic.
It's toxic.
Them and the whole
and then it makes it. And I catch myself and I say, okay, there's got to be a more efficient way. I understand sometimes you have to be firm and whatnot, but then going down to demoralizing words. I mean, this is something that obviously this is totally. Sometimes there's needed.
So this is a huge problem in just parenting, upbringing in general. Yeah. Here's a tip: do not speak about people. Speak about their actions. Golden rule.
Do not speak about people, speak about their actions.
Many a times a parent or just a mentor or a teacher, they'll say, you're dumb, you're hard-headed. They may have been...
Unacceptable.
Of course, unacceptable. We covered that. It's
okay, I just want to re-emphasize that.
Absolutely.
Okay. You don't call a kid dumb. You don't call a kid... I teach also. I teach, martial. I mean, if I did that in one of my students, I'd be out of business.
You'd lose customers.
I'd use customers.
So we need to keep our customers. Not from the financial perspective.
From the deen.
Do you know Pew Research Forum says that the number of people entering Islam are offsetting the number of people leaving Islam? So it's just like, no, retaining your capital is a far wiser, economics-wise, far wiser, is the prudent thing to do, even if you're not going to gain any profits, right? But really, there's nothing happening here. We're losing as many Muslims, at least according to those surveys or those numbers, as we are gaining.
Yeah.
That's just devastating. They're both at around 23%. And so, no, absolutely not. So again, do not write the child off by branding them early, right? The child is as ready for being crafted and shaped as you're willing to believe that they are. The Prophet ﷺ would land on the good things and say to his grandson, or about his grandson, he is a Sayyid, he's a chief that's going to lead the people. He would say that Mu'adh ibn Jabal, who was 18 years old, he's the most knowledgeable of my ummah in
empowerment.
Certainly.
They've done so many studies on this, man. There's so much research on this empowerment.
Yeah, just even a touch, right? The reason a person is more willing to do things, feels more motivated with a soft touch, with a soft word. As opposed to saying, that's it, this person is stubborn. Okay, might as well. If I'm stubborn, then I'm stubborn.
Yeah. I'm sorry?
No, that's all. So just the issue of mercy, right? Being merciful with the creation is a requirement for being eligible for the mercy of God. The Prophet ﷺ said that, but he specifically mentioned after that and alongside that extra mercy, particularly it's just so needed, extra mercy with the youngsters. He says, you are not one of us. They are not one of us. Those who are not revering of our elders, merciful with our youngsters, and recognizing the rights of our scholars. So this issue of, I don't care how religious you are. I don't care how good of a job you think you're doing. I don't care too much how sincere you are. I admire your sincerity, but that is not going to absolve us of using the wrong techniques. Mercy is the most fundamental technique. The Prophet ﷺ said in another hadith, Allah is gentle and loves gentleness and grants. Like, there's good turnaround on this stuff. He grants on the basis of gentleness what he does not grant on the basis of harshness. And we see that in living color. Just try it.
Yeah.
You'll make your life better and the life of those that inshallah you're trying to impact with positive change better.
Yeah. Just a few more points and we'll conclude. The policeman is held to a higher standard. He's a police officer. He has some ethics he's got to go by. The same way the mayor, the governor, the president, right? Quran teacher, man. This person is helping to, develop the future generations. Let's say the person is teaching Quran, and the Prophet ﷺ had said, it reminds me that I have not been sent except to perfect good manners.
Certainly. Absolutely.
So now are you held to a higher standard? Not خَيْرُكُم مَّن تَعَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَهُ. So the best of you are those who teach the Quran. Now if you're calling kids stupid and foolish and demoralizing them and then bringing them down and not lifting them up, and you're not holding yourself to that higher standard, you're going to be accountable in front of Allah, right?
Certainly. Absolutely. Not to absolve anyone of accountability. We all have to answer for our own. But the Qur'an teacher should be the last person to forget that, right? That this is not about knowledge at the end of the day. This is not about us not recognizing the station of someone who bears the sacred revelation. But that in and of itself will not qualify unless it's matched with actions, or it will qualify to the degree that it matches with your actions. If you're calling to Allah's book with your words and deterring from it or calling away from it with your actions are going to speak louder than words, so you're going to have a negative sum total at the end, right? And may Allah protect us from keeping people from being able to get to Him, right? Like, may Allah protect Islam from us. Yeah. It's a frightening but a very real sentiment that we need to remind each other of.
Yeah. A couple more things that came to mind is that, we often talk about, Shaytan facilitating a way, let's say, on one end, right, to the clubs, to the the sins of the desires and negligence of performing and living your purpose in life, and et cetera, right, keeps you there. But then you come in, you're in the deen now, and you think, okay, you're safe. No, you can go to extreme on some ends, and then also now,
and Shaitan doesn't care which way you go,
so
long as you're not here.
So now, let's say even here, we're always being attacked. So it's a test of an individual.
Because Islam's a path.
Yeah.
Islam is not a deed.
Yeah.
Islam is not an act.
And you're training, you're teaching people about the book of the Creator and their responsibility in life, and to be carriers, preservers of this thing. Now also, is it possible Shaitan can also be trying to disrupt this, because now and get people out of programs like this, and because these are future leaders of the deen.
I have yet to forget advice of one of my dear mashayikh and mentors in Medina, Dr. Hussein Shualt, who said to me once, you need to realize that Shaitan is going to work far harder on you than he's going to work on someone else.
SubhanAllah.
Because everyone who considers you some sort of inspiration or icon for guidance or whatever it may be, when you fall, people follow by example, by association. Just we're followers by nature, right? If you fall, people fall with you. Whereas another person, if Shaitan is able to get them to fall, they fall on their own. It's not consequential beyond their own predicament. And so we should certainly be conscious of this more than others, right? Even subhanAllah, when you imagine that false sense of security that the previous nations had, that we read about so much in the Qur'an, it says, and they never became divisive and fell apart and fragmented, إِلَّا مِن بَعْدِ مَا جَاءَهُمُ الْعِلْمُ بَغْيًا بَيْنَهُم, except after the knowledge came to them due to animosity. That tensions arose after knowledge was there. You think knowledge is going to solve it. And knowledge will solve it. Sacred revelation is the greatest gift Allah sends to humanity, greater than giving them their lives, is showing them how to live and how to qualify for the next life. But the problem is our settling for knowledge becomes the greatest detriment to us. Because number one, it will not deliver us on its own. And number two, those of knowledge, when they fall, all those they carry fall with them. Yeah.
Someone says, look, brother, you don't understand. These kids, they act like, they're out of control. And this is how we did it in my country, brother. You don't understand.
It's not right. What can I say? The gold standard is the Prophet ﷺ. Like, are you doing it right or was he doing it right? I just, with all due respect, the preservation of our religion and the messenger of God and the messenger of this religion has to be preserved above preserving personalities.
So it doesn't matter how we did it in our country?
No, it doesn't matter how we did it in any time or any place.
Yeah.
Unless it's conforming with the way of the Prophet ﷺ.
Yeah.
We're not saying there can't be different techniques for different times and places.
Yeah.
Like in Africa, if you're sitting in a tent learning Qur'an from a slate that you're carving in, I would accept that. That's not necessarily contrary to the way of the Prophet ﷺ. That's not what we're talking about here, right? No one's saying here we don't like about the schooling system that they took the desks out and they want to do it the African. That's not the way, because that's just about resources and technique and whatever is available and readily offered to the kids. And that's not contrary to deen. We're talking about the aspects which the deen did regulate for our own betterment. Those cannot be downplayed.
One practical thing I think of, because often you go in, let's say you go into an institution and you have like 30, 40 kids to one teacher. I mean that one thing you can do is like, I would think, like, because also we're human beings, we're susceptible to losing patience and whatnot. Maybe narrow it down, make less students, you know what I mean? Maybe focus on 5, 10, get another teacher for the rest. Because have you ever walked into, let's say, a program, you got like 40 kids, you're losing your mind. You know what I'm saying? What do you think? Some practical we can do. We gave the advice about the book. We took it back to Qur'an and Sunnah. It's not something that's allowed there. You're actually doing more harm. What other practical things, tangible?
I mean, there are no reasons to reinvent the wheel, as they say.
Yeah.
There are people that are doing it right, tabarakallah, in
Yeah.
different places around the world, even in the United States. Even if doing it right, we're employing the rule of relativity here, that
Yeah.
are doing a better job. We can benefit ourselves by just giving ourselves pause to figure out what's the most efficient way to do it.
Yeah.
Many times people know what's wrong with their methods, whether it's in terms of like logistics or just conduct, but they just don't know any other way. And so I think having that graciousness in us as parents, as custom, to offer them alternatives, like we're all in it together, like we all just want to make the best out of a difficult situation sometimes. And so just suggesting alternatives, helping them develop a reward system, for example. It's easy, right? Figuring out a way to be cost efficient so you can hire an assistant. They just need help in that regard. Someone who's specialized in Qur'an doesn't necessarily mean, or usually many a times does not mean, that they're specialized in administrative protocol and business management and, the 5-year plan.
Any truth to this statement? There's no bad students, only bad teachers? Have you ever heard this statement?
It needs to be qualified.
It needs to be qualified?
Right? It is correct in the sense that
You've heard it? You've heard this
you're the teacher.
Yeah.
You're on the steering wheel. You can affect them in a way. You're the adult. You're the parent.
Yeah.
You can affect them in more ways than you realize, meaning 99% of the time there's potential for khair, there's potential for good. You just need to be sure of that and act on it the right way.
You got to find it, right?
Yeah. So
it's there.
99% of the time it's there.
It's challenging at times. Everyone's unique in their own
and we're
little
all
way.
in it. I mean, we're all learning on the job, and none of us are infallible, and we're all struggling. And at the end of the day, our greatest asset is admitting our powerlessness to Allah Azza wa Jalla. Tell me, Allah, I can't do it alone. Please open my eye, offer me the help. I'm stranded without you.
I mean, I'm the first one that can benefit from this. I'm trying to be a better parent. I make the mistakes. I lose my cool at times, but I'm trying to. I want to be better. I want to learn. I want to grow. And inshallah, if all of us can keep that open mind and that heart, that this is out of the love. This is out of the love. It's not like we're sitting here and we say, hey, we figured it out and we're perfect. But all of us are the slaves of Allah. We make mistakes day and night, but Allah is the most merciful. But we're trying to do these things and benefit from these advice so we can become better, inshallah, better parents, better worshippers of the Creator, and we can end up in Jannah. So hopefully,
may Allah gather us all there safely.
Ameen. But you know what? This is an excuse now to have you back, because we only did one question and we got some more. So next time you're in Chicago, we got to finish these. I mean, some really good questions.
Hopefully someone better than me steps in and takes it.
I enjoyed talking with you, and inshallah we can have you back. Always a pleasure. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khair.
Can we do a shout out to our cameraman Hamza?
Yes.
May Allah bless him. Eddie's son is doing an awesome job, mashallah, and he's an inspiration. May Allah raise his rank and help us and him be carriers of his book and his deen.
Ameen. Where can people get in contact with you? They can visit you at a website.
I'd rather refer them to Yaqeen Institute for Islamic Research.
Institute.
It's doing amazing work, inspiring contribution through conviction. Check them out, inshallah. I have some work on there as well. But stay tuned for more and more khair from them, inshallah.
We're learning a lot. The first part, we talked about Fuzi. You don't want to be a Fuzi to Muslim or a modified Muslim. You want to be a Muslim, one who has submitted themselves to the Creator of the heavens and earth, Allah. And we talked about we're creatures of imitation. So out of His love, Allah sent Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, to be imitated, to be followed. His Sunnah, we have it. And you got a lot of sensational people out there doing some wonderful work. Maybe we can learn some good things from them. But you also got some people who are doing opposite to the true purpose of life. We don't want to follow them. So the door of Allah's love is always, to His forgiveness is open. For Fuzi, for Juicy, for all these people. And we got nothing but love for them. But we don't like the things that many of these people are calling to. It's just like someone, let me put it in a more palatable way that you can understand. Imagine you're in school and you're being tested. And for sure, we're being tested in this life. And now you got someone cutting class, partying, flunking out, failing. And you got your other friends saying, come on, man, let's go. Let's listen to the teacher. Let's pass the class and let's graduate with honors. You wouldn't think nothing wrong with that, right? And then you could be successful. Well, that's exactly what we need to do in this life. We're not an accident that happened, just randomly appeared in this world. No, Allah created us and He's testing us. So when you pass the test, you got Jannah. Fail the test, is the consequences of hellfire. And we don't want to end up there. So hopefully people who get this message, they can go ahead. And if they're following people like that, they can waken it up. And then we talked about also recapping and summarizing. As I said before, the policeman has a responsibility. He's held at a higher level. He's supposed to stop crime, not facilitate crime. The same way, the Qur'an teacher, as the Prophet ﷺ said, خَيْرُكُمْ مَنْ تَأَلَّمَ الْقُرْآنَ وَعَلَّمَ. The best of you are those who learn the Qur'an and teach it. They're at a higher level. The Qur'an teaches what? Patience. What does the Qur'an teach? Good manners, ethics, along the foundation of worshiping the Creator, not the creation, pure monotheism. So the Qur'an teacher, not just helping people memorize the Qur'an, but they have to be walking the Qur'an with their good attitude, good manners, good behavior. So now, if we're teaching our kids not to use demoralizing words, stupid, idiot, retarded, all these things, and the Qur'an teacher's using it, unacceptable. Unacceptable. No, we wouldn't tolerate it in a regular school, a public school. No way are we going to tolerate it from our Qur'an teachers. These are supposed to be the best amongst us. And inshallah, they can get this message with that love. And we can make these adjustments. And they can learn from it, grow from it. Because we're human beings. As the Prophet ﷺ said, all of the sons of Adam are sinners. Right? But the best of those are those who turn to Allah and repent. And we're all trying to grow. We have to keep our minds open, learn, grow, and correct our shortcomings and mistakes so we can become better, so we can get to Jannah. Subscribe if you haven't already. Hope you benefited, because we do this out of the love. We sincerely try. Thank you very much. Until next time, peace be with you. Assalamu alaikum.